Okay, we'll start today with the answers from the questions that I set last time. So we had some questions on sedimentary rocks. We started down here with question number 18. So what are the three main sections of the Earth in order from the centre? So that is the core, the mantle, and the crust. So you'll remember that the core is split into the inner core and the outer core, and the crust on the outside, that's where we live on top of. All right, which is the biggest section? The biggest section is the mantle. And why is the mantle liquid? It's because of the high temperature, which causes it to melt. Although you'll remember that the mantle is this sort of strange, it's like a solid and a liquid, all right? So it's like a solid, but it flows like a liquid, all right? And that's because of the high temperature. So what causes the mantle to move? And that is the process known as convection. You'll remember we had inside the Earth this sort of idea of the mantle moving round in cycles, all right? So sort of here it's near the centre of the Earth, so it gets hot, so it moves up, and then it starts to cool down, and then it moves back down. All right, and then that will push the plates apart on the top of the Earth. Why are the crystals in extrusive igneous rock smaller than the ones in intrusive rock? All right, so that is because extrusive igneous rock is formed outside the Earth, where the temperature is low, so it forms really, really quickly. And intrusive are formed inside the Earth, where the temperature is higher, so the crystals will be larger. All right, so it needs to be this idea that you have extrusive is quickly formed, so they are small crystals, and intrusive are slowly formed, so they have large crystals. All right. Describe how igneous rocks from the top of a volcano can be weathered and eventually become new sedimentary rocks on a river or a seabed. So you need to have this idea of, we start with weathering, could be physical, chemical, or biological. After the weathering, we have transportation of those pieces of rock down rivers, down the sides of mountains, that kind of thing. Okay, and then they will be deposited, so it will be deposition onto the seabed. All right. Explain why sedimentary rocks are layered, because this deposition process happens in layered seabed. You'll remember from last week. Okay, and sandstone is a sedimentary rock. 4 stages in the formation of sedimentary rock are listed below. They are not in the correct order. Put them in the correct order. So we have weathering, then weathered, transported, then deposited, and then compacted. Okay, and then there was one more question, which was question 26. Igneous rock, such as granite, can become sedimentary rock. A model of this process is shown below. And the question A is, step 1 represents chemical weathering in the rock cycle. Which part of the rock cycle is represented by step 2? Okay, so we can see here that step 1 is chemical weathering, because it is the rock, the pieces of granite, with dilute acid. So that's a chemical process. And then we have shaking the jar vigorously. So if we shake this jar, we shake it, all right, all the bits of rock are going to hit each other, and they're going to get smaller because of that. So this process here is the same as physical weathering, because we're not using a chemical now, we're making the pieces of rock hit into each other in a physical way. All right. A river carries pieces of granite from a mountain to the sea. Describe 2 ways in which the pieces of granite change as they are carried. I only need one way really here, so I know I've asked for two, but I'll just take one way which is that the pieces of granite get smaller. Pieces of granite get smaller. That's enough. And which two parts of the rock cycle are represented by steps 4 and steps 5? Okay, so step 4, leave the dish to stand for a few hours. So we've put the bits of rock into the tray of water, and the bits of rock are then going to fall to the bottom of the tray. So this step 4 here is deposition. Down bottom of the seabed. So last week we had this picture here. You'll remember the deposition going down. And then step 5, we press the wet fine material for many weeks with heavy weights. Okay. So actually we could say really that step 4 is deposition and sedimentation, because we're building up those sedimentary layers, and then step 5 would be our compaction. Okay, it's not likely to be cementation. We're not likely to have that much force going on here, so it's likely to be compaction, I guess. So if you said deposition or sedimentation for this one, that's fine, and compaction for this one. All right, good.